Well, welcome to Friday afternoon at the Manor. My name is Joseph Mastandrea, and in for quite a treat today, as we will hear a bit more as Susan Johnson will welcome our speaker, Paloma. But again, you can come here in person and enjoy the wonderful fellowship of sometimes pizza, sometimes sandwiches, and or you can Zoom in. But it's going to be quite exciting today. And to me, I've always been an aficionado of birds in a sense of I remember being in Harrington Harbor, and there was a bird sanctuary. This is about 1,500 kilometers east of here, and there was more numerous species than you could possibly imagine, and something so remarkable. So we're going to welcome Susan. Come on. Susan Johnson will then greet our wonderful speaker. Over to you, Susan.
Thank you, everyone, for coming today. We welcome Paloma Plant, who is with Fatal Light Awareness Program, which is geared at protecting birds in the city, especially the city, because this is where we have all the light pollution. So please take it away, Paloma.
Thank you very much for the invitation and for allowing me the opportunity to speak to your congregation. I will start my screen sharing, and if somebody could please let me know that this is actually working, because sometimes I have issues, so let me know.
Well, Paloma, I need to make you co-host.
You do.
Yes, there we go. I just remembered that. Okay, I should have asked you. There we are. Okay.
Let's try it. No, host is okay. I'm disabled, so you need to re-enable it.
Made you co-host. There you go. You want to try that again?
Okay, here we are.
Okay, good.
Oh, not sure where my PowerPoint's gone, but just 1 second.
So you remember when you share, you have to look at it on your computer, and you go back into the Zoom, and then you share your screen, and then locate it on your desktop.
There we are. Okay. You gotta love technology.
We're closer. We're seeing your
You're seeing my desktop. I don't know why you're not seeing the PowerPoint though.
Okay, we'll just go back in. Stop sharing for a second. And then you go onto your desktop and then call up your PowerPoint. And then once you see that, go back into your Zoom and then share again. That should work. Yeah. Well, we're actually seeing the menu of the PowerPoint. Oh, there it is. Okay, I see it.
For some reason, it made it very tiny. I don't know why, but let's try this.
So you go slideshow and go from beginning.
Okay, we are there. Can you see it?
Beautiful.
Great.
Okay, well, let's get started then. First of all, again, thank you very much for the invitation. My name is Paloma Plant. I am the program coordinator, and I happen to be a co-founder of the Fatal Light Awareness Program, or commonly known as FLAC Canada. We are the first organization in the world to actually bring the issue of birds colliding with windows onto the global stage. And we've been doing this for 28, almost 29 years. And it's something that we had hoped we would not have to take this long to get the awareness that we are finally seeing, but it is happening now. I'm going to take you through a little bit of the history of our organization. I'd like to let you know what it is that we do, why we do it, and how you as a member of the public and hopefully bird lovers can also contribute to helping our feathered friends fly through our city. So we are going to be having a bird's eye view and reflecting on bird window collisions. And a little bit about FLAP, as I mentioned. So in 1993, FLAP first hatched. And since then, we've gone from doing the rescue and rehabilitation and recovery to a number of programs and initiatives, including guidelines, policy, standards, and development, advocacy and education, data collection and research. And of course, advocacy and education is one of our biggest goals, because without that, we don't want to have to keep doing this. There has to be a way to prevent it. And it is an extremely preventable thing. So hopefully at the end of the presentation, you may never quite look at a window in quite the same way again, because you might look at it from a bird's eye point of view. Our programs include a number of initiatives, Birdsafe, which is more for the commercial buildings and the commercial industry. We've got the Global Bird Collision Mapper, which is a community science tool. We have Global Bird Rescue, and we also have Birds in Your Hood, which is a program aimed at grades 1 to 12, so the school system, and it's designed to engage students with birds that they might find in their neighborhood. And that could be no matter where they are, whether it's Toronto or outside, it doesn't matter, because for the moment, birds are still there. So it's a fast growing program, and we're hoping that we can get even more input from people as well. One of our latest programs is called the Birdsafe Campus. I apologize for the phone call in the background. And I forgot to mention at the beginning of the presentation, I have a large, loud puppy. And I also have a very large sounding, but very loud sounding bird. So my husband's supposed to be keeping track of them and keeping them quiet. We'll see how well he does. One of the other initiatives that's relatively new is our Birdsafe Campus initiative. And that also identifies our mission statement dedicated to safeguarding migratory birds in the built environment through all the different initiatives that I've already mentioned previously. So who are FLAP? FLAP is 4 full-time staff members, 1 contract person, and we have over 130 active volunteers from all walks of life, from people in high school to people in their 80s. And the common goal that all these people have is to help the migratory birds passing through our built environment. We have volunteers during the 2 migration seasons, both spring and fall. We'll go out 7 days a week during those 2 times, looking for birds that have collided with windows or buildings in Toronto. We've actually expanded our volunteer services, and we do now patrol in Mississauga, in Markham, in Etobicoke, there's Burlington, and beyond. Basically, wherever we have people that are willing to go out and look for fallen birds, that's where we are. Volunteers are out during the daylight hours. We're also out in the pre-dawn hours because we want to make sure that we can get any birds that have collided with windows passing through Toronto during the night. And this is primarily focused more in the downtown or financial district of Toronto, but we document both the live and the dead birds. On good days, we find no birds at all. On good days, birds that we do find are all alive, or as many alive as we can possibly get. On bad days, unfortunately, many of our birds are not alive. And just to sort of show numbers, a few years ago, we stopped counting at just over 500 birds in a 6-hour period that were literally falling all around us at a group of 3 buildings in Scarborough, simply because we could not keep up with the birds that as they were falling. So on bad days, you can have many, many birds colliding at one location. Each of our live birds is placed in its own paper bag. There's no wax coating on the inside, and the bags are secured on the top so that the birds do not get out. Without the wax coating, the bags themselves are actually porous and allow the birds to breathe. And we also use homeopathic remedies to help start the healing process immediately. Each of our birds will be assessed for injuries and to see whether or not they can be released fairly soon. Birds that are injured are taken to the local wildlife rehab center, and they would be cared for, hopefully, until they can be released later on. This is one of the birds that we would likely be seeing in the next week or 2, a northern flicker. You can see the tip of the beak is broken, and unfortunately, many of the woodpeckers, of which the flicker is the family of, do hit extremely hard and do suffer significant beak injuries. Birds that have been assessed and can be released are taken to appropriate settings for their species. Right now, woodcocks, of which the bird is in the picture, we are seeing coming through Toronto right now. And unfortunately, they are extremely vulnerable to window collisions. They have an extremely long probing beak, which they use to dig for earthworms. They're one of the last migrants to come through our area in the fall, and one of the first migrants to come back again in the spring. And so if you see a fat, chunky little bird with a long pointed beak anywhere down on the ground in the area, if you happen to be walking to the shops or going to school or work or even to church, you'll know that that bird really does not belong there and in all probability may have hit a window and would require assistance. So this particular bird would have been released in a marsh type setting, which is where they're most comfortable. Unfortunately, 60% of the birds that we do pick up on an annual basis will die of their injuries on impact. And that amounts to, in the last 28 years, we've picked up close to 90,000 birds of 173 different species, including species at risk. So we are one of the major contributors to the Royal Ontario Museum because all our dead birds are passed on to them. From there, they get what we consider a second life. It's a term that we use very loosely, but these birds can be used in so many different ways by the museum. They're used for trading with other museums. They're used as parts of research programs, whether it's muscle mass studies or wing studies or age studies. They're used by researchers in scavenger studies and wind turbine studies. They're used by artists. Some of the rare birds will also find themselves in the museum's collection. And it's unfortunate that we have to do this, but at least there is no waste. And one of the things that we deplore the most is that these birds are dying and they go unnoticed. And that unfortunately happens more than you realize. Moving on, frequently encountered species for the Toronto area. And what you're seeing is 1 year's worth of birds that our volunteers found. Every spring, pre-pandemic, we would have a public awareness campaign at the Royal Ontario Museum where we would display the birds that did not survive their collisions in an annual layout so that people could see and become aware of just how bad the problem is. So you can see the different colors, the different sizes, and some of the most frequently encountered species are the Blackburnian warbler, the ovenbird, the white-throated sparrow, the golden crowned kinglet, and one of the birds that are usually the most recognizable, the ruby-throated hummingbird. And they are extremely vulnerable to window collisions, but more from a residential standpoint, and I actually will touch on that a bit later. The white-throated sparrow, which is the little guy here with the yellow just above the eye, is unfortunately the one that holds a dubious distinction of being the one we have found the most of, close to 11,000 individuals in our 28 years worth of monitoring. They are coming through right now. Their numbers are throughout the downtown area. In all the green spaces that you will likely find, you'll see them rooting around on the ground. If you are lucky enough, you can hear them singing, and their song is a beautiful, haunting, oh sweet Canada, Canada, Canada. And I'm not going to sing it because I cannot hold a tune to save my life. So if you need to hear it, go to YouTube and just punch in white-throated sparrow, and it is beautiful. However, many of the birds that we do find are also species at risk, such as the magnolia warbler, the whippoorwill, the barn swallow, and the wood thrush. Again, many of these birds are already challenged in their own environment, whether it's through habitat loss, it's through neonicotinoids or other pesticide use, it's through cats and a number of other challenges. And in fact, buildings are one of the leading causes of death to migratory birds behind cats. Cats are the #1 killer, unfortunately. To explain a little bit about bird migration, and my apologies if you already know this, but not everyone does. Many urban areas across North America are actually situated under major migratory flyways. And the city of Toronto and the province of Ontario happens to sit under 2 major overlapping corridors, which makes it one of the busiest migratory passages on the planet. So you get kind of the double whammy. Spring, the birds are in a rush to get to their breeding grounds, so the migration is quite rapid. In the autumn, however, birds take their time. You don't have young migrating with adults. Some species migrate in flocks. Some use different migratory paths. But the bottom line is, with all the young of the year, the fall migration is one of the busiest times for us, which is why we are out there 7 days a week in as many places as we can, because we find birds when we go out. The more you find, the more you can rescue. When these birds are migrating, they're using a number of different tools to help them do that. They don't have cell phones or anything else. They do have visual cues, and over 80% of the birds that we do work with do actually migrate at night. And these are all the migrant birds. Some of the local birds, such as the house sparrows or the starlings or the pigeons, will collide with windows, but they have adapted to the urban environment. The birds that we typically deal with are migrants from the boreal forest, the tundra, the northern parts of Ontario, marshland, swampland, open fields and meadows. They're not used to the built environment, and they are the ones that are the most challenged as they pass through Toronto. When the birds are using the visual cues, they're using the setting sun and the Earth's geomagnetic field and the stars and the moon. So all of these help them navigate. And if it's not just at nighttime that they're traveling, during the day, they're also using topographical landmarks. And of course, the city of Toronto does happen to sit on a major body of water. And in fact, cities around the Great Lakes, large urban centers around the Great Lakes, all experience significant bird window collisions. And now most of them already have flat flight programs in place to do exactly what we do. Let's put this all into perspective. In terms of numbers annually in Canada alone, it's an estimated 25 to 42 million birds a year will die from collisions with windows. Across North America, that conservative estimate jumps to 1 billion, which amounts to 3,168 birds per second. So in the time that you are listening to me talking about this, many birds are colliding in all different areas across North America. So the numbers are staggering. And it's something that is so easily preventable. But I hope that at the end of this, there will be some ideas that will help you if you are struggling with what to do with birds colliding at your home. What is the issue? It's a twofold issue. It's a nighttime issue and it's a daytime issue. The birds are migrating at night, and if they cannot see the moon and the stars and the patterns at night, because of bad weather, they start to fly at lower altitudes, and the lights from urban centers confuse them and bring them crashing down into the cities. However, the daytime issue is unfortunately more numerous a concern and definitely more lethal. And that's simply because birds do not see the glass. And they don't do that because my computer is, let's try again. Oh, for some reason, it's not doing what it's supposed to do, but glass is absolutely everywhere, whether it's our homes, our cottages, condos, transit shelters, vehicles, barriers, or our workplace. The glass is literally everywhere. And the problem is birds do not see it. They don't see it as a solid surface. They see through it if it's transparent, or they see reflective environments if it is in an area where there's a lot of greenery. And unfortunately, no matter where you go, even in the most natural of places, we as a society love glass. In fact, John Robert Carley, the architect, did actually say, we as a profession seem to be in love with glass. Either that or our clients are. And the myth that an all glass facade brings nature in and transports one out into nature is strictly that, a myth. To us, the transparency and reflectivity may seem real, but to birds, it is illusory and deadly. While I know most of these images are a little on the extreme, we are seeing these buildings and these types of settings more and more because we are in love with glass. It's one of the cheapest products out there. And if you look, no matter where you go, you can go downtown, uptown, midtown, anywhere around the Young Eglinton area, which I believe your church is close to, you will see more and more buildings going up with a greater percentage of glass on those buildings. So it is a problem no matter where you go. Let's talk about the nighttime issue. At night, when the birds are flying, the lights do confuse them. And of course, the city of Toronto is one of the biggest brightly lit cities there is. However, We do put out a migration alert at the start of every migration season, and many buildings will actually ask their tenants to turn their lights down. There are such things as event lighting or decorative lighting. And in fact, what you're seeing on the right-hand side are the twin beams at Ground Zero in New York City. So September 11th, when these lights get shot up into the night sky, it also happens to be the height of migration in New York City. So if you look carefully and you see all those white flecks in those beams, those are actually birds trapped in those beams of light, and they will fly around and around. They crash into one another, they become exhausted, and they land on the podium where the lights are. There are a number of groups in New York City that work with the organizers of this event to actually turn the lights off when the birds reach a certain number. And if you ever have the chance to watch the Messenger documentary, it's an award-winning documentary by local producers. It's a wonderful documentary, but it does speak to this exact issue. And it's just amazing to hear the sounds of the birds as they start to leave the area once those beams are turned off. Communications towers are also a problem. This particular image is from Kingston many, many years ago. And again, you can see all the little flecks above the communications towers. And in fact, many places that have this kind of lighting can experience significant mass die-offs in one night, depending on certain migrating conditions. And again, as I mentioned, as the birds are migrating, if there is inclement weather, any fog, or the moon and the stars are obscured, the birds will fly at lower altitudes, and that brings them into contact with many of the tall buildings. They're flying at night because the migrating conditions give it a little bit more safe for them to do so. There's less aerial predators, and the temperatures are much cooler, and they seem to be able to move a lot faster and certainly a lot further. So the fog and bad weather is a significant problem for them. However, the daytime issue is a much bigger problem. The nighttime issue is an easy fix. Turn lights off at night, and there is a problem. The daytime issue, however, is a bigger issue because it's not as easy to fix. So whether you're talking about transparent shelters on the top left to the reflective windows on the top right, all these things contribute to a bad environment for birds as they are passing through. During the day, when they migrate at night, they come down during the day to rest and to eat and to feed, and they are migrating through the tree canopy at different levels. And this is where they encounter buildings that have reflective windows or transparency. And depending on where these windows are situated, size does not matter. And you can see the reflective environment in this cottage. You can actually see right through from one side of a house to the other, to the greenery right through the house on the other side. So that's the transparency, even with a little bit of reflectivity. And of course, a car mirror is just as bad because it can also confuse birds as well. And we also know of birds that have hit stationary cars because, again, they can see through from one side to the other as well. The reflectivity is a big problem because it's like looking in a mirror. The birds do not realize that there is a solid mass and they are flying towards a tree that they just left, not realizing it is a reflection of the tree that they just left. The transparency, whether it's a curtain wall, a corner or an adjacent building, or transparent railings, again poses a significant threat. And right now, no matter where you go, we're seeing transparent railings absolutely everywhere. We're a transparent society. We want to see what other people are doing. We want people to see what we're doing. And in fact, we're seeing transparent railings in places where typically we never used to see them. And that's often in cottage country, where the old cottage railings used to be the wooden spindles. We are now hearing of people who replaced those wooden spindles with the clear transparent railing, and they've had collisions from pileated woodpeckers, and they've had collisions from ruffed grouse. And again, hummingbirds especially. And we've always said that if bald eagles hit windows at the rate that hummingbirds hit windows, we would not be having this problem because it would have been fixed years ago. If a hummingbird hits a window, unless you happen to be there when it happens, or you see the bird down on the ground, it's very, very quickly taken away by a predator. Whereas if a bald eagle hits your window, you and everyone else around you is definitely going to know it. Again, putting it into perspective for height, tall buildings really, in terms of numbers, do not cause anywhere near the number of deaths that low to mid-rise buildings do. So you can see whether it's the mid-rise building or whether it's the low 1 to 2 story residential buildings. Collectively, 1 billion birds is still a huge number of birds annually. And the populations, quite honestly, can't sustain that. To explain about why the daytime issue is so problematic, this is the strike zone. And if you look carefully, as I mentioned earlier, hummingbirds are extremely vulnerable. Hummingbirds fly and feed at one of the lower levels. And that's often because we have plantings in our gardens that draw them in, or we put feeders in our gardens that draw them in. So you go to restaurant patios downtown and you can see all these beautiful red begonias or geraniums or other red and beautiful flowers. But unfortunately, so do the hummingbirds. And the higher up in the tree canopy you go, you see the different levels that the different birds fly through and feed at. So currently, 16 meters or sometimes 20 meters would theoretically be the height of the mature tree canopy in Toronto. So if you are looking to put something on your windows, that's really the height that you would have to be concerned about. So this is more for the condos or taller buildings, but that's the strike zone. And that's why it's so important to know that. So that if you're living in a building 50 floors up and you're the owner of that building, you can think, oh, I don't have to treat, 50 floors. I need to treat to where the height of the mature tree canopy happens to be. Let's talk a little bit about bird deterrent technology evolution. Right now, current train of thought is the 2x4 spacing. So you want to allow for any visual marker to be placed on your glass in a 2x4 spacing pattern. And that is simply because it's small enough that most of the birds that would try to fly towards the window, if there is a visual marker there within that spacing, that would be something that they could see and fly away from. However, to be the most effective, you would actually want to make that a 2x2 rule, because that would also allow for the tiniest of birds that we find, which would be the hummingbirds, the kinglets, or the creepers. And to understand the technology evolution, you need to know what has always been used in the past and how effective or not it has been. So what we used to find, the plastic owl was one of the first products out there that people would put out to scare birds. They got really techie and decided, okay, well, the stationary owl doesn't work, so we'll make one that makes the head swivel. Well, in all honesty, birds don't really think much of that, and in fact, completely ignored that. So that one did really nothing to help keep birds away. Something else that was often used would be noisemakers, especially on golf courses. And the one that stands out most for FLAP and the volunteers at FLAP, if you see a window anywhere that has a hawk decal on it, you know that someone there has realized that there is a problem because they've put that decal up there to scare the birds. However, they've not done their research or their homework. And typically, when they put a hawk decal on a window, it's possibly one, sometimes two. First of all, the birds know it's not a real hawk and that doesn't scare them off. But what would happen is the birds would likely not hit in the general vicinity of where the decal is. But the rest of the whole window is still exposed. And to be perfectly honest, this product would only be effective if the entire window was peppered with decals. And I have yet to find a window anywhere that has actually done that. So that's really not going to work. However, what does work? So you need markers that have contrast and identity, and you need to be see if you can't see them very well, then you can be sure that the birds can't as well. If you have a dark background with a dark marker, it doesn't really pop out at you. But if you have a dark background with a clear or solid marker, white, then that definitely stands out. Alternatively, if you have a light background and you put a light marker on the window, again, it's difficult to see. Change the contrast, it's definitely more visible. And if you want to encompass all light conditions, you can use a duotone marker so that they can be seen. Doesn't matter how dark the windows are during the day. A few examples of just how creative you can be when applying something to your window using the specific requirements for the spacing. And you can see that your windows can still be made quite attractive. So which is the surface to put the marker on? Always the first surface, which is the exterior surface of the window. If you have a single pane of glass, you've got two surfaces. Surface 1 is the outside surface. Surface 2 is the second surface or the inside surface. Some buildings that have double glazing will have surface 3 and surface 4. But why the marker is placed on the outside is the further in you go on surfaces, the less visible the markers are. And again, much of this is depending on the light conditions. And this is the best way I can show you what I mean by that. This could be your window 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. This is from the outside looking in. You are seeing nothing really reflected in that window. You can see right through. That's a transparent window. However, as the light changes during the day and the conditions change, that transparent window could very quickly become reflective for a small period of time in the afternoon. Perhaps it could be 2 or 3 or 4, but whenever your window looks like that, that's when a bird is more likely than not to collide. And the best way I can say to you to say, is there a concern for my window? Go outside to your windows as soon as daybreak happens. Take a picture every hour on the hour and then compare what you see in your window and see if you notice any changes throughout those daylight hours. And if you do, then you really do need to do something about those particular windows. Suggestions for treating different things at your windows at home. You could have window films or fritting, digital printing and etching. You can use China markers or sunshades, grill work, cable and lattice systems. And there's also perforated film. And the perforated film is more for the commercial industry. And it's something you actually see on transit shelters and on buses. You can print on it and you can see quite easily from the inside out. But it does present a nice visual screen from the outside looking in from the bird's point of view. We've often been asked what other methods or tools can be used, and bird screen is actually something that's very, very outdated right now. It used to be that when houses were built, the screens for the bugs would always be on the exterior window or the summer window that you would put in. And people say, well, if I put a screen up, how am I going to be able to see outside my window? Well, one of these images on the right has a screen and one doesn't. It really does not affect your ability to view. So which one has it? The one on the top has the screen, the one on the bottom does not. So it really does not affect your chances of looking out and seeing your landscaping, your garden, even birds in your garden. Something else that works extremely well would be paracords, or you can go online and go to Eccopian Bird Savers. There's Zen curtains, you can make them yourself. This happens to be an inside and outside view of an eco lodge in Costa Rica. They made their own just using string, and they said they found them to be extremely effective. Window markers, the feather-friendly do-it-yourself residential tape in the pandemic has been flying off the shelves. And if there's anything good that's come out of this pandemic, is the fact that people are realizing what we have been saying for the last 28 years, that birds are dying at your homes. Why they haven't been noticed before? Well, we've not been there. We've been working in our offices or in our warehouses or away from home. And we've been home so much lately that we can't help but hear that terrible thud of a bird hitting a window. And the different products that are out there now compared to say 5 or 10 years ago, there's so many more that you can put up. And again, this particular one is very inexpensive. It's easy to apply. And once again, does not affect your view looking from the inside out. You can go to our website to look at all the different products there. And hopefully there's something there that you will really like. Placement of feeders is extremely important because a lot of us like to put feeders in our garden to see what's coming through our garden. And you really ought to place your feeder about 1.5 feet or less from the windows. And if you look at the image on the right-hand side, the homeowner here actually did that. They were about 1.5 feet. However, they did continue to have collisions at their windows. And why is that? Because their feeders are close, but if you look right in the middle of the image, again, you can see from one side of the house to the other through transparency, they had feeders on both sides of their house, and the birds could see those feeders and wanted to try and get through to them. So feeder placement is important. As I mentioned earlier, cats are the #1 killer of birds, and in fact, wildlife in general. And we do advocate keeping cats indoors. And they do kill an estimated 196 million birds across Canada every year. And this was a survey done by the Environment Canada a number of years ago. So it is a significant threat in addition to all the other challenges out there. Where we are with bird-friendly evolution, we are now at the stage where the city of Toronto was the first city in the world to issue bird-friendly development guidelines. Since then, cities across Canada and North America followed suit, whether it's Calgary or Markham, San Francisco. The latest city was Ottawa in 2020 to put forward their own bird-safe design guidelines. Many of these, unfortunately, are only voluntary. The City of Toronto's are mandatory. And this is all for new construction from 2010 onwards. So if you are traveling anywhere in the downtown area, or you see, and again, the Young Eglinton area has this massive construction boom happening right now, have a look. And if you see markers on those windows, you will know they are there because of the work that FLAP and other similar-minded groups have been doing over the years. And it really is making a significant change to the built environment. A few examples of buildings considered to be bird-friendly. They were not designed for being bird-friendly. They just happen to be that. So if you happen to be going anywhere near any of these buildings, have a good look at them. And what is in place now are 2 laws. One is the Species at Risk Act, one of the acts, and the Environmental Protection Act. This stemmed from 2 lawsuits back in the late 2010 and 2013, I believe, that now means that it is against the law for you to be killing or injuring birds by reflective light or windows on buildings. And we have seen the Ministry of the Environment and Climate Change starting to actually use these 2 laws to address problems at some buildings that continuously have birds hitting and do nothing about. Community science is something that we have had for some time now. We have the Global Bird Collision Mapper, which is an online science tool designed to get people to enter a bird collision from anywhere in the world. And it's designed to create awareness of the problem of birds, whether you look at the clusters of birds that are there or whether you look at individual locations. And if you do go there and check out any of the Young Eglinton area, you will see significant numbers at some addresses there because those are buildings that FLAP has been monitoring for a number of years. This just happened. This is our 4th year for Global Bird Rescue, and it's a global initiative where teams across the world, as well as individuals, for 1 week, take to the streets in their community to document as many live or dead birds as they possibly can. And there's a live counter in place at the time. So anyone that does see a bird that collides can enter that report and see their number go in right away. Currently, the number sits at 1,200. We anticipate having close to 2,000 birds when all the reports are in. And again, this is our 4th year, and we are hoping to see this grow year by year. Reports come from all over the world, Australia, New Zealand, Europe, North America, South America. And we really, really are glad that it has become a global concern, because window collisions are a global concern. A little bit about why we advocate so much and why the information and the data is so important. FLAP was first founded in 1993 because of all the birds that we were finding in the financial district, not the least of which was the Toronto Dominion Centre. It took many, many years and a lot of discussions, but finally in 2021, so this year, they applied visual markers to most of the buildings on the TD Centre footprint, and it's a fairly large footprint. And I'll be honest with you, the smiles on our faces, no mask big enough in the world will ever hide that, because we never thought we would see this happen. To bring it closer to home, however, when you go anywhere near the Yonge Eglinton area, Holly and Sudan, you may recognize this building. It's a 4-story building, and they have been getting bird strikes for many, many years. This year, they retrofit their building, and they retrofit their entire facade on the east side and the south side after discussions with FLAP on which sides to pursue the action most. And I have to say, from the words of one of our volunteers, in the time that she's been monitoring for the fall, the one period that she was looking at, she did not find a single bird collision at those 2 sides, whereas the same period of time last year, she had 57. So the birds markers do work. If they're effective, they're done in the way the science dictates, they can be the massive difference between life or death to a migrant bird. So it really is powerful enough to show that this does work. You want to do your part, this is a great way to do it. The Canadian Standards Association issued bird-friendly development guidelines in 2019. FLAP was one of the stakeholders in the group to issue this. And MPP Chris Glover has actually tabled a motion in the Ontario legislature to have the bird-friendly designs become part of the building code for Ontario. So please add your voice, go to your MPP and ask them to vote yes on this motion. It's a no-brainer. It's a non-partisan issue. It doesn't matter what political party you are. Birds affect and are around for everybody. And why are they there? Why is it so important? To wrap it up, we need them as part of our lives. They are a big part of our lives. They are nature's insect controllers. They pollinate plants, they distribute seeds, and they're part of the food chain. They're also part of one of the largest hobby and growing industries across not just North America, but the world. And the birdwatching industry, especially during the pandemic, has grown in huge leaps because, again, you've not been able to go anywhere, but the birds have always been there. One day they may not. So we want to continue to protect them and create a healthy, natural, and economic environment for them and for us. And I'm hoping that you will take part in some small way, whether it's with a window feeder or keeping your cat indoors or putting something on your windows. But the bottom line is there's all little things that we as a society can do to make those changes. It's not irreversible at this point, but it can lead to disastrous effects down the road. So FLAP Canada is on all social media platforms. Please, if you like what you saw, follow us. And if you have any questions, please do reach out to us. And once again, I thank you for your time. Oh, wow. did it in the 45 minutes. I'm so happy. Usually I can go on forever. So I'll stop sharing my screen. And if anyone has any questions, I'm more than happy to take them.
Well, Pamela, that was cool. Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Well, quite interesting, quite interesting. Now, what we figured out for people in the room, we do have a microphone if people want to ask a question, or if people online want to ask a question. What I might do is go to gallery view so it's easier for me to see everybody and just see if anyone, does anyone here have a question or comment? No? Susan, or, there you go. Just say your name and then.
Hi,
is it on?
Hi, I'm Jen Bex, and I wondered if you would, what you think about having bird feeders on a balcony. I have two, and they're as far out as I can put them without disturbing the neighbours underneath. But I'm getting birds hitting the windows. Most of them survive, all of them actually so far, thankfully. But do you think that's a bad idea to have feeders on a balcony?
I don't think it's a bad idea to have feeders on the balcony. I do think it's a bad idea if you don't treat your windows. Simply because the bird feeders drawing the birds in, but there's nothing to change what is on the window, whether it's a reflection of the bird feeder or the sky. The birds, again, don't really know that there's glass there. And we are seeing a significant increase in people who are using native plantings or replacing plants in their garden with native plants. The minute you start doing that, you're drawing native species of not just birds, but other animals in as well. But you're not giving them a friendly environment or a safe environment by doing that if you don't put something on your glass. It's the same with people who put feeders in their garden, but let their cats sit outside. You need to make sure that if you want to enjoy the birds at your feeder, and we have no problem with that, make sure that the surrounding environment is also a safe environment for them. And that way, and you say that they do survive, and I don't mean to burst your bubble, but they might hit the window, but they don't always survive. They can certainly fly away, but they are still injured, and many of them will not actually make it. So rather than go that route, it's easier if you put your feeders up, make sure the windows are safe for them, and you can enjoy it from all different ways. Did that answer your question?
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. That was great. And any other questions from people, from Susan or Susan?
Oh. I'm Susan, and I'm wondering what this inexpensive screen covering or window covering, what's it called and where do you get it? Does Amazon have it?
I'm sorry, I caught part of that. Could you repeat it, or could somebody?
So what is the name of the covering for the windows, and where can you purchase it?
Okay. If you're looking at the do-it-yourself residential tape, it's called Feather Friendly, and their company is in Mississauga, and you can order the product online. You can also buy it in some of the retail outlets. You can go to their website, or you can also go to flat.org or birdsafe.ca and just click on different links. There's links to so many different products. Again, reiterating what I said is what does work and what doesn't work. So don't waste your money on things that don't work, because it's ineffective, and it is exactly that, a waste of money. So Feather Friendly for that. And again, there are other links that you can go to, whether you want to use China markers or window films. As long as it meets the 2x4 rule or the 2x2 rule, it will be effective.
That's one. So what I did is I looked up the website as you were speaking, and I'll send it to everybody so that we have that follow-up notes. That's good.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's very helpful. No, definitely. And then I'm just this. Now, Betty, you always have your inquisitive mind. Do you have a question as one of our part of our online? No. I think she's probably okay. Okay, maybe she can't hear me. Okay. And Amir, Amir, do you have a question? I think Amir speaks Farsi, so we're probably not going to have a question. Yeah. That might be the issue. Okay. And so, no, I was thinking, oh, there's Amir. How are
Hi.
you doing? Very good.
Not too bad. I'm good.
Oh, do you have a question?
Sorry, I'm working. No, I don't. No.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us, Amir. And so, Pamela, I'm just thinking out loud. So we talked about the covering for the windows, because part of it is then maybe thinking of how we can help create healthy bird habitats for the city. And I guess my initial thought is birds seem to figure that out, but part of it how we can make our neighborhoods maybe more bird friendly. And it's interesting that building you were mentioning at Holly and Sudan is actually, I think, is it a 10-minute walk from here? Yeah, it's really close. Well, which is purely coincidental. I mean, you showed that. And it's so what we all want to do now is go to this. What was the name of that building that had the retrofit?
It's at the corner of Holly and Sudan. It's 20 Holly, 40 Sudan.
Right.
And it wasn't purely coincidental. It was very much intentional.
Oh, okay. Good. Well, that's good though, because it encourages us then to walk over and take a look at it, because I think that's wonderful. And
honestly, no matter what I say or what I show on a slide, it will never have quite the same visual impact as you seeing it in person.
Oh, definitely. I'm just thinking out loud, as they're going to be building 45 condominiums in the next 5 years at Yonge and Eglinton.
Yeah.
And is there any wherewithal within the city of Toronto as a mandate when people do create their architectural plan to do what you're talking about? Is that in place yet, or?
Actually, yes, it is. Because of the Toronto Green Standard, and this comes under the Bird Friendly Development Guidelines, the Toronto Green Standard from 2010 onwards for new construction at a certain height, there has to be bird-friendly visual markers incorporated in the design of the building. However, the minimum standard is not effective. The green standard is due for a revision and will be upgraded in May of 2022, which means that all new construction will have to have visual markers on the exterior surface, which is the one that we've been pushing for the longest time. So there is a mechanism in place to some degree. Unfortunately, again, what works and what doesn't has already been discussed. The problem we are facing, though, is the majority of the buildings that continue to have the bird hits are pre-2010. So those would be retrofits, which currently there is no mandatory measure for. Voluntary measures are in place for that. And I will say that the building at Holly, Sudan, voluntarily applied the visual markers.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know.
So if you are there and you happen to see somebody walking by that is from the building, or knock on the caretaker or manager's door and say, your building is beautiful, it's saving birds' lives, thank you. Because they need to know that it is being recognized for what it is.
Yeah, because we certainly we're moving into the realm of understanding better the need of the ecosystem, and how just because we weren't aware of it before, we're very aware of it now. Now, Betty, do you have a question?
Oh, I was just typing in. No, I enjoyed this very much, and thanks for increasing awareness. And my apologies, I've just talked to another Zoom.
No problem.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you, Pamela. It's been thoroughly enjoyable. And now we're going to bring Susan Johnson back to the podium just to bring a farewell.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
So thank you very much, everyone, for coming here. I hope you enjoyed it. Next week, we have Julie Malone, Dingle Druid. What is Samhain, which is a Celtic festival that we'll learn all about. Should be very interesting. Hope you can join us.
Thank you again. Just to do a little bit more a plug in additional for Julie. We met her in 2016 when I was on sabbatical. And she's one of these, she actually lives in Dingle, which is the southwest corner of Ireland. And she has a shop called The Bell, the Book, and the Candle. There's a film from the 1950s, which is of the similar name, which has features, she's actually a druid. and she conducted our vow renewal in 2017. And so it was quite powerful. So looking forward to everyone. We'll sign off for now, and thank you, and have a good rest of the day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, you too. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.